We are listening Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. After the forward and introduction, now the communication starts where we will listen the question from the devotees and answers from Sri Ramana Maharshi. Let us start. Talk 1. A wandering monk sannyasi was trying to clear his doubt. His question was that how to realize that all the world is God. Maharshi said that if you make your outlook that of wisdom, you will find the world to be God. Without knowing the Supreme Spirit, that is Brahma, how will you find His all-pervasiveness? Then, in the talk 2, someone inquired about the nature of perception. To this question, Maharshi replied that whatever state one is in, the perceptions partake of that state. The explanation is that in the waking state, that is the Jagrat Avastha, the gross body perceives gross names and forms. In Swapna, the dream state, the mental body perceives the mental creations in their manifold forms and names. In the Shushupti, deep, dreamless sleep, the identification with the body being lost, there are no perceptions. And similarly, in the transcendental state, identity with Brahma places the man in harmony with everything. And hence there is nothing apart from his self. Now comes the talk 3. A question was asked as to the nature of happiness. To this, Ramana Maharshi replied that if a man thinks that his happiness is due to external causes and his possessions, it is reasonable to conclude that his happiness must increase with the increase of possessions and diminish in proportion to their amount getting diminished. Therefore, if he is devoid of possessions, his happiness should be nil. Maharshi further said that what is the real experience of man to this? Does it conform to this view? In deep sleep, the man is devoid of all the possible possessions, even his own body. And instead of being unhappy, he is quite happy. Everyone desires to sleep soundly. The conclusion is that happiness is inherent in man and is not due to the external causes. Mahasi further said that one must realize his self in order to open the store of unalloyed happiness. Talk 4. Maharshi was asked by an educated young man that how do you say that the heart is on the right side, whereas the biologists have found it to be on the left, and the man asked for authority. Ramana Maharshi replied, quite so. The physical organ is on the left side, that is not denied. But the heart of which I speak is non physical and is only on the right side. It is my experience, and no authority is required by me. Still, you can find confirmation in a Malayalam Ayurvedic book and in Sita Upanishad, and he produced the quotation, the mantra from the Sita Upanishad, and repeated the slok from the Malayalam Ayurvedic book to the young educated questioner. Talk 5. Mr. M. Friedman, an engineer, remarked on the subject of grace. A salt doll diving into the sea will not be protected by a waterproof coat. It was a very happy smile and was applauded as such, and Mahasi added, the body is that waterproof coat. Then, in the talk 6, the question was asked by a monk sannyasi about how to prevent the mind from being distracted. To this, Ramana Maharshi replied that you see the objects on forgetting your own self. If you keep hold on yourself, you will not see the objective world. Talk 7. When asked if occult powers or the siddhis can be achieved along with omnipotence Ishwaratva as mentioned in the last verse of Dakshinamurti Ashtakam, to this Ramana Maharshi said that let omnipotence Ishwaratva be accomplished first, and then the other question may be raised. Talk 8. The question asked was that can anyone get any benefit by repeating the sacred syllables mantras picked up casually? To this question, Ramana Maharshi replied that no, he must be competent and initiated in such mantras. Maharshi illustrated this by the following story. The story runs this way. A king visited his premier in his residence. When he reached there, he was told that the premier was engaged in repetition of sacred syllables or jap. The king waited for him and on meeting him asked what the japa was. The premier said that it was the holiest of all, the Gayatri mantra. At that time, the king desired to be initiated by the premier, but the premier confessed his inability to initiate him. Therefore, the king learned it from someone else, and meeting the minister later, he repeated the Gayatri and wanted to know if it was right. The minister said that the mantra was correct, but it was not proper for him to say it. When pressed for an explanation, the minister called to a page close by and ordered him to take hold of the king. But the order was not obeyed. The order was often repeated, but still that person didn't obey what the minister was advising. At that time, the king flew into a rage and ordered the same man to hold the minister, and it was done immediately. The minister then laughed and said that the incident was the explanation which was required by the king. How? The king asked again, how? The minister replied, the order was the same and the executor was also the same, but the authority was different. When I ordered, the effect was nil, whereas when you ordered, there was an immediate effect. Similarly is the thing with the mantras. The king understood the matter and the discussion was closed. Talk 9. Someone inquired why it is said in scriptures that the sage is like a child. To this question, Sri Ramana Maharshi replied that a child and a jnani sage are similar in a way. Incidents interest a child only so long as they last. It ceases to think of them after they have passed away. So then, it is apparent that they don't leave any impression on the child and it is not affected by them mentally. Similar is the experience of the sage. Similar is the lifestyle of the sage. Similar is the way of living of the sage. Then in the talk 10, a visitor asked how to realize oneself in accordance with Maharshi's instructions contained in his text of Truth Revealed, verse 9 supplement. The difficulty was in controlling the mind. Ramana Maharshi replied, "It is to be done by controlling the breath. If you practice it by yourself without other help, then the mind is controlled. Otherwise, the mind comes under control spontaneously in the presence of a superior power. Such is the greatness of association with the wise, or the satsang holds such values." Talk 11. Can destiny, the karma, ever come to an end? Maharshi replied, "The karmas carry the seeds of their own destruction in themselves." The karma carry the seeds of their own destruction in themselves. Talk 11 again. Can destiny, karma ever come to an end? Raman Maharshi said, "The karmas carry the seeds of their own destruction in themselves." Talk 12. A man asked Ramana Maharshi to say something to him. When asked what he wanted to know, he said that he knew nothing and wanted to hear something from Maharshi. Ramana Maharshi replied that you know nothing. Find out that knowledge, that is liberation, that is mukti. Talk 12 again. A man asked Ramana Maharshi to say something to him. When asked what he wanted to know, he said that he knew nothing and wanted to hear something from the Rishi. Raman Maharshi said, you know that you know nothing. Find out that knowledge. You know that you know nothing. Find out that knowledge. That is liberation, that is mukti. Talk 13. Mrs. M.A. Piggott, an English lady who had read Search in Secret India, came to see the Maharshi. The services of a disciple as interpreter were provided. There were many visitors at the time in the hall, including some ladies with their infants. The place resounded with noise. At length, silence prevailed, and suddenly Maharshi, who seemed to be looking at infinite space, was heard to say softly, "Monkey." A little baby was then discovered in the doorway, unobserved by the mother, who was seated on the other side of the door, with a large monkey standing on his hind legs, who with both hands was fondling the child, not hurting it in the slightest, both being at peace with each other in Maharshi's presence. When Maharshi's voice monkey was heard, the monkey jumped away adroitly and disappeared. This incident greatly impressed the lady. Then the same lady asked first that, is a master necessary for realization? Raman Maharshi replied to this question and said, the realization is the result of the master's grace more than teachings, lectures, meditation, practices, etc. The realization is the result of the Master's grace more than teachings, lectures, meditation, practices, etc. They are only secondary aids, whereas the former, that is, the Master's grace, is the primary and the essential cause. Devotee then asked, what are the obstacles which hinder realization of the self? Raman Maharshi said, they are the habits or the vasanas of mind. To the obstacle for the realization of the self, Maharshi said, they are habits or the vasanas of mind. Then the devotee asked that how to overcome these vasanas or the mental habits. Maharshi said, by realizing the self. Devotee said, that is a vicious circle. Maharshi replied, it is the ego which raises such difficulties, creating obstacles, and then suffers from the perplexity of apparent paradoxes. Find out who makes the inquiries, and the self will be found. When the devotee said, this is the vicious circle, Maharshi said, it is the ego which raises such difficulties, creating obstacles, and then suffers from the perplexity of own apparent paradoxes. Find out who makes the inquiries, and then the self will be found. Devotee then asked that, what are the aids for realization? Raman Maharshi said, the teachings of the scriptures and the teachings of the realized souls. Can such teachings be discussion, lectures, and meditations? Raman Maharshi said, yes, all these are only secondary aids, whereas the essential is the Master's grace. Devotee when asked that the aids for realization, can the teachings or be the discussions, lectures, meditations? Maharshi said, all these are only secondary aids. The essential is the Master's grace. Then the devotee asked that how long will it take for one to get that grace? Ramana Maharshi said, why do you desire to know? Then the devotee said, to give me hope. Ramana Maharshi said, even such a desire is an obstacle. The self is ever there, there is nothing without it. Be the self, and the desires and doubts will disappear. Such self is the witness in sleep, witness in dream, and witness in the waking states of existence. These states belong to the ego. The self transcends even the ego. Did you not exist in sleep? Did you know then that you were asleep or unaware of the world? It is only in the waking state that you describe the experience of sleep as being unawareness. Therefore, the consciousness when asleep is same as that when you are awake. If you know what this waking consciousness is, you will know the consciousness which witnesses all the three states. Such consciousness could be found by seeking the consciousness as it was in sleep. Devotee said that in that case I fall asleep. Ramana Maharshi replied, no harm. Devotee said, it is a blank state. Ramana Maharshi said, for whom is the blank? Find out. You cannot deny yourself at any time. The self is ever there and continues in all states. Then the devotee asked again that, should I remain as if in sleep and be watchful at the same time? Maharshi said, yes, watchfulness is the waking state. Therefore, the state will not be one of sleep, but sleepless sleep. If you go the way of your thoughts, you will be carried away by them and you will find yourself in an endless maze. Then the devotee said that, so then I must go back tracing the source of thoughts? Maharshi said, quite so. In that way, the thoughts will disappear and the self alone will remain. In fact, there is no inside or outside for the self. They also are projections of the ego. The self is pure and the self is absolute. Then the devotee said, it is understood intellectually only. Is not intellect a help for realization? Maharshi Ramana said, yes, up to a certain stage. Even so, realize that the self transcends the intellect, the latter must itself vanish to reach the self. Devotee said, "Does my realization help others?" Maharshi replied, "Yes, certainly. It is the best help possible. But there are no others to be held. For a realized being sees the self just like a goldsmith estimating the gold in various jewels. When you identify yourself with the body, then only the forms and shapes are there. But when you transcend your body, the others disappear along with your own body consciousness." Then the devotee asked that, "Is it so with plants? Is it so with trees, etc.?" Raman Maharshi replied, "Do they exist at all apart from the self? Find it out. You think that you see them. The thought is projected out from yourself. Find out where from it rises. Thoughts will cease to rise and the self alone will remain." Devotee said, "I understand theoretically, but they are still there." Ramana Maharshi said, "Yes, it is like a cinema show. There is the light on the screen and the shadows flitting across impress the audience as the enactment of some piece. Similarly, also will it be if in the same play an audience also is shown. The seer, the seen, will then only be the screen applied through yourself. You are the screen, the self has created the ego has its accretions of thoughts. The ego has associations with thoughts which are displayed as the world, the trees, plants, etc., of which you are asking. In reality, all these are nothing but the self. If you see the self, the same will be found to be all, everywhere, and always. Nothing but the self exists. Devotee said, Yes, I still understand only theoretically, yet the answers are simple, beautiful, convincing." Maharshi replied, "Even the thought I do not realize is a hindrance. In fact, the self alone is." Over here, now we will take a pause. We need to listen to these questions and answers repeatedly. Sometimes things are clear, sometimes it creates confusion also. But it is sure that what you have listened are the exact and the absolute truth imparted by a true man for the humanity. Thanks for listening.